Good morning, students. This is Mr. Nicholas from Anestra Victory Boys, taking you from one CRE. Today we'll talk about a topic on the Sinai Covenant. But before we proceed with that, reminding ourselves a little bit on something we did last about the covenants, and we learned something about a covenant, and we say this is an agreement between people, two or a group of people, and we say that there must be some seal, there must be some sign, and there must be some promises. Those are called the elements, or we can also say they are the characteristics of our covenant. We also say that there are some examples of modern covenants that are given out today, and we say one of them are marriages, because they are witnesses being present to see what is taking place. At the same time, we also say there are what is called ordinations, those that are Catholics, even those that are being ordained as bishops and pastors. They will tell you that there are things that they have to sign. So an ordination is an example of a modern covenant. You will be asked in maybe a question that state examples, or 5 examples of the modern covenants that you have learned. So far I've mentioned 2, and I've said 1 is a wedding, 2 is what we call the ordinations, and we can also talk of the oaths being taken up in courts. So those are just an history of the previous lesson, our previous topic before this. So if you're handling that, please ensure that you know, and you also know the characteristics of these covenants. And we say the characteristics, these features, or elements, one of them we have said, 1, there must be a sign. 2, there must be a seal. 3, there must be a witness. And 4, there also must be an agreement, or what is called, apart from the witness, we can say there's a ceremony, and there are also consequences. And why we are saying that a marriage is an example of a modern covenant, there are ceremony. There's a ceremony that is going on. That's why people come together to celebrate. There are consequences. People sign and they give outside that I will be with you till death, despite in spite of the circumstances. So today, let us simply look at, focus on our topic of the Sinai Covenant, and on this we want to talk about somebody, the life history of Moses. So when we're talking about the Sinai Covenant, you have talked and you have learned through the Bible, and you know what is all. But now, having learned, reminded ourselves of what we did with the covenants, now we have said today we are talking about the Sinai Covenant, and our main aim here, the one of the people we want to talk about is Moses. So I want to talk about a little bit history of the background to the call of Moses. What is all about Moses? What do you know about the life of Moses? How was he called by God? You know very well that Moses had escaped and ran to Egypt. There later, after he killed an Egyptian, defending himself when they were fighting with an Israelite, then he had to escape again because he feared Pharaoh, and he went and hid in the wilderness. And while at the wilderness, that is when now somebody called Jethro met him, took him out of the wilderness, and then there later he served as a shepherd in Jethro's home and family, and even married Jethro's daughter. There later, that is when we begin his call. So the little bit history during the time that Moses was born, a decree had been made that all the firstborn had to be killed, because the king had heard that the Israelites were giving them a threat. They were increasing in number. So he said that all their children are to be, the firstborns are to be killed. So during this moment, this is when the mother of Moses gave birth to him. He tried to hide him for a long time, but he could not. So what happened? The last option, after 3 months hiding him, then he made a waterproof basket. He went and now hid him next to the ocean. There later he was picked just by Pharaoh's daughter. He went and grew up now in the king's palace. This is something that you will see even in the questions when you are asking, what did that give to his life? Was that important? Which lessons did he learn? And how did that equip him for prepare him for the future leadership for the Israelites when he was now told to go and take them, and he was the one that was to lead them. So thereafter, after Moses had been hid for a long time, now the mother had no option. He decided now to go and take him next to the river, besides the river, with a waterproof basket. There later, the daughter came and found him, took him, and he was well taken care of by his mom at the king's palace. That was the little bit history of Moses and how he grew up and how he came up to stay in the palace. We can read all those stories from the book of Genesis, chapter 37, verse 1 to 36. Also, the same story we can read from Genesis chapter 50, verse 1 to 26. Again, we can also read from the book of Exodus. So let us now see basically how then Moses was called by God. One day, now that he became a shepherd, after Jethro picked him, he was in the field grazing of this sheep. And then accidentally he saw a bush that was burning from far, but this bush was not consuming. So he decided to move closer to see what is this that is happening here. So when he moved closer, he heard a voice calling him by his name. What do you think as a student, if you are in a strange place and you are alone by yourself, you hear a strange voice calls you, something that you have not known, and yourself, you are alone. What will you behave? That is something that you need to take to yourself and ask. If you hear a sound calling you, the voice called Moses, like Moses, Moses, Moses. So he was very afraid and was terrified. When he tried again to move closer to see who is this that is calling me, he was commanded not to move nearer, for the place he was in was a holy place, and he was commanded to remove his sandals. So the story of Moses, the call of Moses, that is when you get it from the book of Exodus, chapter 3, from verse 1 to 22. So during this moment, Moses was surprised, he was terrified, and was afraid before the Lord. But God told him, please don't be afraid, for today I have chosen you. I want to send you back to Egypt. I want to send you to go and deliver the people of the Israel from the hands of the captivity. I have heard of their cry, and you are the one to go. But Moses complained. One, he said that he is not able to go because one, he had disappeared from Egypt simply because he had killed an Egyptian. So he feared Pharaoh, and that's why he complained. And he asked, but which signs will I go and show that you are the one that is with me? Because God told him that, please go, I will be with you, and I'll go and I'll make the Israelites will understand you. But he said that, how will they know that you are the one who has sent me? And then what happened? He told Moses that these are the signs. He told Moses that you will take a rod, when you put it down, then it will turn into a snake. When you pick it up again, then it will come to a rod. That was one of the first signs. Another sign was that he was to put his hands in the pocket, and then it will be filled with leprosy. When you turn them back, then they will be well again. So when Moses complained, God assured him, and that is why the two signs for surety that God was with him. At times where you are, things may be taking place. As we look at this part of the call of Moses, we take this as a reality unto our situations and unto our life. At times, God may call us. We may be knowing unknowingly, but what happens is that some of us feel terrified, we feel fearful, and we are scared. But now the life of Moses, after being scared, God assured him and told him, please don't fear, because I am going to be with you. It's you that's going to deliver the people of the Israel from the hands of captivity. I have heard of their cry, and now I have heard of their cry, and you are the one to now go. In fact, you know very well that the Israelites, Moses, had grown up in the palace and now had the skills. And that is what the Lord does. At times, the Lord can use you in a different way, just to survive for a future, just to survive for what is coming ahead of you. So when at times conditions become very tough, when Moses had escaped the wrath of the king of the firstborn being killed, he went and the mother made him his life in next to the riverside. But now the daughter of Pharaoh comes and finds it and takes it. This is a very handsome boy. I cannot let it go. At times you are passing through things that unless you be king, some of you will feel and lose hope. But a Lord has a purpose in your life, that if you are the one to deliver, maybe you are the king of that family, you will be the light of that family. Just simply the same way Moses is now told. So he's being told that don't be afraid, I'm going to send you. I'm going to make you a sign. I'm going to protect you. So God assured him, and Moses is told to go back to Egypt. But another time, another reason as to why he complained is that he feared of Pharaoh, because he knew very well after he had killed an Egyptian, and he knew that Pharaoh had heard that what he had done. So he then escaped to the wilderness. So he remembers this story very well. But now he's worried, how is he going to make it with Pharaoh? And God even tells him that now he will make the heart of Pharaoh so stubborn, but with several plagues, then he will later allow the people of the Israelites to move and to go. So, a little bit of that history, we can now learn some lessons. So we can ask ourselves, you as a student, that what are some of the lessons that we can learn from the call of Moses, from the background history of the call of Moses? As an individual, what are some of the lessons? Can you take home this morning? Can you take home and say that, oh, this is the lesson I have learned as a Christian and as a CRE student? What are some of the things that we can learn? One of the things that we can learn from that God is a deliverer. He heard the cry of the people of the Israelites. They had been suffering under the hands of the Egyptians. They were like slaves. But God heard their cry. So he now sends Moses to go and deliver them. So he says, our God is a deliverer. Even at times, the situations you are facing currently, our God is able to deliver you. As a Christian, that's a lesson that you need to take home. That there's nothing that is permanent, that God cannot change. He will come to deliver you. Secondly, is that our God empowers those he called. We see him telling Moses that he will protect him. He gave him even the signs, and he empowered him, encouraged him not to lose hope and not to fear, because he was going to go with him. And he was assured that if in case he does not disobey what he said, then God was going to be with him. So our God empowers those that he calls. So when you are chosen by God, God empowers you. He gives you some of the powers, some of the courage, some of the words to convince and to do his work and to accomplish his will in your life. As a student that is now maybe at home, somewhere you are, God is able to achieve that. He's going to empower you. He's going to give you the courage to pass what you are going through, even unto this hour. Even when you are just in your plantation of garden sukuma wiki, then God is with you where you are. Thirdly, what we can talk about, that God expects total obedience and faith on those that he chose and he calls. We see this from the life of Moses. When God told him not to move closer to the place it was a holy place, and then he was commanded to take out his shoes. He did not complain, but that he took away the sandals and he respected it. He respected God's order. So we say that God requires total obedience to those that he calls. At times you are called in different areas. You are called maybe as a worshipper, you are called as an intercessor, you are called maybe to serve just with your parents. Maybe you are a great farmer back there at home. Something you find to do with your hand. Maybe that's an area of calling. It needs total disobedience unto you, that you are not able to disrespect him. As you follow his commandments and you become obedient to his words, then you are able to follow that. Next one is that God chooses whoever he will to carry out his plan. And we also saw that as an example of Abraham, and now we also see this in Moses. Just somebody that you don't know will become a leader somewhere. He's just in the wilderness, just a shepherd. The same way we can also say the life history of David, and you saw that in the house of Jesse. He is found just the last born, and he was at the faith, and the same God chose him. So God can choose anybody that he feels and anybody that he loves to serve him, irrespective of your background, irrespective of your status. Don't sit back simply because at times you don't have shoes to go to church, you don't have offering. God can choose anybody. What he needs is you check your heart, be obedient to him, and he'll call you to serve him. Be on watch out at night and during the day. Ensure that you follow his commandments. So God can choose whoever he wills to carry out his plans. And I've said an example of that we saw in the life of Abraham. We also saw it in the life of David. And now again we are seeing that through Moses. And again, second last we can see here is that God is all-knowing and he knows us by our name. That is why he chose Moses. He knew what Moses had done, even though now Moses was trying to complain. He's trying to say that he's not able, he's just so mere. But God knew himself what he feared, simply because he had killed an Egyptian just to protect an Israelite, showing and giving identity that he's not amongst them. But now we are being told, as a lesson we are learning from this, that God is all-knowing. He knows us by our name. If you are called Kevin, he knows you, you are called Kevin. And that name he knew you would be given before you are born. So protect that name by serving God. He knew what Moses was going through even before he called him. And he knew that this is my leader. And remember, that's why when during the reign, during the calling of David, he told him that people, I'm a man, look at the outside part, but with him, he was looking at the heart. And that's when he was now looking for David and the children of Jesse, when they had come, all of them. And he said, is there anyone that was remaining? He said that there's the last born, but it's in the field. What was happening? He was shepherding. He was taking care of the sheep. Now, he knew what was taking place. So God knows you by your name. Even with your parents, God knows them. Advise them, encourage them at this hour that God knows them by their name. There's nothing impossible. He will get all of their hands and all will take place. And lastly, we say that God sees. God sees. So he sees us, and he's examining our lives, watching over us from where he is, and he's saying that we are his children. And that is why he saw the people of the Israelites, and he said how they are suffering. So he's seeing their life, what they are passing through. At this hour, at times you are undergoing a lot. There is no breakfast, at times there's no lunch. But our God sees. He sees in secret, he sees during the day, and he sees at night. So what should we do? Let's keep serving him. Let's keep on watch out so that when he comes, he should find us when we are ready. That's a lesson that we can learn from the call of Moses. So can we have some few questions to handle maybe before we end our lesson. There are a few questions you can ask yourself. One is that one of the questions you can ask yourself that how did Moses demonstrate his obedience for God of Israel? How did Moses demonstrate his obedience to the God of Israel? I want that to be 7 marks. When you meet next time, we will have to discuss about that, how Moses showed and demonstrated obedience to our God, the God of Israel. Second question will be, what Christians learn about God's call of Moses in the wilderness? As a Christian, some of the lessons we have learned here, I want you to add more 5. What are some of the lessons as a Christian, Christians can learn from God calling Moses in the wilderness? And lastly, the last question I would want to ask is, state 5 ways on how Moses was prepared by God to be a future leader of Israel. How was Moses prepared? How did God prepare Moses to be a future leader of Israel? I think that will be the end of our lesson for today. Enjoy yourself. Please greet those parents. Help them when you're at home and pray with them even in case they are sick. Otherwise, God bless you much.